Hello and welcome back. As you might have gathered from the information down below, my name is Lauren. I eat stuff, I go places, I do things, and right now we are making stuff. Specifically, if you've been following along in the last couple of videos, I have been working on getting my home metal studio back together, and I have really been focusing right now on doing casting, which is really what we're going to do today. We're going to do a little experiment. I also want to preface this by saying I am in no way, shape, or form an expert. I am just a doofus on the internet who is trying not to burn her garage to the ground. So that being said, I'm gonna make mistakes. I won't always be right, but I will show you the success and I will show you the abysmal failure if that happens. And if you learn something and I learned something, then I would call that a success. So today we're gonna focus on casting, I guess we'll call it weird stuff, non-traditional things. So basically anything that's not 3D printed or carved from wax. And I'm gonna actually take you in a second to my desk and I'll show you, I dug out of the way back when a couple of things that I cast from different materials. Some of it is different types of wax, or some of it is plastic items or food. But I think that will give you guys at least a good example of where I'm going with this. And also, I just want to preface this by saying at the end of the video, we may not have anything, just because casting with weird stuff gives you weird results. You could cast leaves 5 times and maybe only get 1 or 2 leaves out of a cast, out of different castings. It's just hard to kind of tell. I'm gonna fast forward through a lot of the regular casting process just because I don't want to keep making the same video. I want to focus on kind of the newer things that I'm going to talk about today. If you want to watch any of my other videos where I go into more details about like my actual casting setup or the equipment, I have added all of that stuff into a playlist for you. You can check those out and those will give you more information. Also, I try to be very good about answering questions. I don't know everything, but I do maybe like once a week try to sit down and like answer any questions or comments. So let's get to work. Okay, so before we get started spruing up what we're gonna cast today, I thought I would go in the way back when and I would dig out some things that I cast a long time ago and show you guys just to give you an idea. Because I think a lot of people think that you can only cast, you know, things that you've carved out of wax, or you can only carve things that you've 3D printed. But I just thought I would open up the realm of possibility so that way when you watch me cast a bunch of weird stuff today, you're not like, what? The reason I'm showing you this is just to show you that you can cast something larger out of wax, but just to keep in mind when you are creating the size of your flask, because this, I think my flask that I'm casting with now is little and we had access to larger ones in school. So you're kind of possibly limited in that way, but I just want to show you guys this because I dug it out, thought it was cool. So this was with just regular blue Ferris wax. You can cast, like I did little plastic figures that I cast, made them into a little brooch. If editing Lauren remembers, I will show you what these actually look like on a person somewhere in the screen. That was really fun. I have even cast my own ear. Don't worry, they're both still attached to my head, but this was actually really fun. And this is actually pretty cool because I could use this in the same way that I use a dress form to drape fabric. I could use wax to kind of drape kind of on here and make different pieces that I think would be really cool. But this is my actual ear if you were ever curious about that. So a few little non-traditional things we'll put off to the side. Okay, so here's where we are today. If you guys can tell, these are actually pieces of popcorn that I cast. Hopefully that's focusing okay, but yeah, these are actually pieces of popcorn. So you can cast kind of like organic materials. You just have to really be careful about the way you put them in the flask. And a lot of casting these kind of odd, non-traditional things is really in the prep work, I think. So these are a few pieces of popcorn. Another kind of cool thing that I cast. So this is a regular pistachio shell, habanero lime, if you're curious, but just to give you an idea of what a regular pistachio shell looks like, and then what it looks like once it's been cast. And you can probably see where I could have cleaned the sprue, where the sprue was attached a little bit. But this is kind of a cool thing. These are, I think, pretty castable. And here's where I did like a little pendant and put a little stone inside. So yeah, well, you can cast all kinds of stuff, and it really is just all in the preparation. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you what we're gonna cast today. If you're actually lucky enough to live near a beach or something like that, then you can always go and get a few free seashells. And hopefully this works out, because I have not done this in my home casting setup. So fingers crossed, huh? I'm also gonna try to cast a couple leaves. I'm just gonna do a big piece, and then when I sit down and sprue everything up, I might trim it down. But you can't just throw it in there how it is. We are gonna give it a little coating first. Or you can use any clear acrylic sealer. This is satin, and I paid about $15. Well, this was about 15 bucks at Michael's. I think I used a coupon, ended up being something like 8 or 9 bucks. But we're just gonna spray a couple of layers of this on the leaves. We're gonna spray it, flip it over, rotate it, spray it again, and then it'll be kind of protected from the investment. All right, we got a good coating. I'm gonna let this dry, come back in a little bit, give it another little coating on the back. It's been maybe like 30 minutes and these feel kind of dry to the touch. They don't feel wet. So I'm gonna flip these over and do the backs. Then we'll probably wait another 30 minutes and then I'll do one more little coat, and I think these should be okay. Just really quick, as I am getting these all sprued up, little tip, if you have something that's like this, like a seashell, these just happen to be shiny, which actually makes the wax a little difficult to stick to. So I'm doing a couple things here. One, I have a little piece of sandpaper, and right where I'm going to make a bail out of wax, and the bail is the part that like the chain goes through on the necklace. So you can see here, I already started on one. I'm gonna clean that up, but it's much easier for me to already have this on here than cast this and then fabricate one later. I could do it, I'm just being lazy. But so in order to make it easier, I just like to sand just the little top where the bail is gonna go. It just roughs it up just enough, and you're not gonna be able to see that later because that's where the bail's going, so that should cover that up. And the rest of this should be nice and smooth and easy to clean up later. The other little tip here is this blue wax is really hard to stick to stuff that is like shiny or has a sheen to it. And I find that if I pinch off a little bit of like the actual pink sprue wax, this wax is like, it's stickier and it's a little softer. I wouldn't call it like sticky like putty, but if you kind of pinch it off, you can kind of tell there is a little kind of light tackiness to it. So I will take a little piece of the pink and I will smush it. And that's kind of how I sprue a lot of stuff up, is the pink part, I will kind of smush it into where I want to go. And then when I'm happy with that, I will then melt it onto the object or kind of blend the waxes with my little soldering iron. So just a little pro tip, that is how the pink wax stuck way better to the bottom. So this I feel good about. And then you probably can't tell, but there's a tiny bit of pink wax at the top here that stuck to the shell, and then I blended it in with the bail. So you can see my leaves are pretty well coated. They're nice and shiny. Hopefully you can see the sheen on there. And I'm not gonna cast all of this. I just sprayed a couple of pieces because I wanted to give myself some options. And I feel like this is really nice, but I feel like necklace wise, I'm really digging maybe this section right here. So I think I'm gonna trim that down and sprue that part up. So I have a little section. I think this would be kind of a cool looking necklace piece. So you can see when I put these down, hopefully you can, these are really quite stiff. The leaves are really hard. I could really try and get them pushed down, but I don't want to do that, but I think they'll hold up to the investment. What I'm going to do too is where I have these little joints, I might do a tiny bit of wax on these little joints where the leaves are, just to try and see if I can give them a little more stability. But otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and sprue this up, and I'm gonna still put where I want bales on this. So I think this will be cute. So my biggest fear with actually spruing this up is that it's going to be weak and wobbly. And really I want like kind of a fat funnel into this. So I'm going to end up taking little pieces of this pink wax and just kind of build it up until it's a little fatter here, since I'm going to chop this anyway. One thing that I do to kind of check and see if this is where I want it is I will kind of push down on these and see if they wiggle. If this is flexing for me, then I'm just gonna add a little bit more here just to kind of strengthen my sprue. If you've watched any of the other videos, you know when I get to this point, I like to take my little brush, inexpensive kind of craft brush, and I like to kind of brush the things with 99% alcohol. So I'm still gonna do that, but I'm not going to do anything that I sprayed with that clear coat. I just wanna make sure that I kind of keep the integrity of that. I don't wanna kind of compromise it. So I might do a little bit of a touch up on where I did the bales for the leaf necklace, but the shells should be totally fine, being cleaned up a little bit and debubbled with the alcohol. I'm not sure if you guys can see. Unfortunately, I was short a little investment and I had to sacrifice the top of the leaf over here. You might be able to see there's a tiny little bit where that little spot is. I actually had to trim it down because it was sticking out, and I was really worried that I would maybe have like a fire, or I don't know, when the burnout happened, I'd create a hole and then the metal would just shoot through the bottom. So unfortunately, I did have to sacrifice the little tip of that leaf. So that's my fault. I should have double checked and made sure that I had enough investment, but I'm gonna try to kind of go easy on myself for this. I do still have the rest of the piece and the other leaf, and I do still have those 3 other cowrie shells on the bottom, and I'm really excited about those. So hopefully this doesn't pose any issues. I'm gonna go ahead and take this off and let's get it in the kiln. So we'll look in the bucket, see if we see anything, but I would say this was a no-go. Not today. We'll see what we got in there, but we have what, a little piece of twig. We'll dig through and see if we find any treasure, but it's not looking good. So I don't know if you can see, this is actually not pieces of investment. This looks like pieces of the shell. So that makes me think that maybe we didn't keep it at the higher temperature long enough. So maybe if I was gonna redo this, I might, instead of for that last 4-hour plateau of heat, instead of keeping it at 750, I might maybe crank it to 8 for the whole time or something like that. But I'm just seeing little pieces of shells, but nope, doesn't look like we got anything. I think we're coming up empty-handed. Not our best cast. We have, really all we have is like a twig here with no leaves on it and none of the shells. So not the most exciting cast we've ever had. I don't know. I think that If you are casting and you really need to get a certain result, like you have an order for a seashell necklace or something like that, and you need it to come out a certain way, this is not the way I would do it. I feel like the reason that you would cast like this is because you really want to get a more authentic and organic shape. And from there you would make a mold just out of wax from there so that you can replicate it the same every time. But that being said, I would try this again. I think I would maybe try to alter my burnout schedule just a little bit, like in my classes and stuff. I saw other people cast with shells and varying success, right? Sometimes people had beautiful pieces and sometimes people just got nothing out like we got today. Some of this stuff is weird because we have an idea of like what kind of burnout schedule we need to do for like wax, or what kind of burnout we need to do for like 3D printed resin or something like that, because that's been given to us like on the back of the bag, right? But with this kind of thing, it's kind of guessing game a little bit. The shells, I think, have to hold at a higher temperature to burn out all the way. Otherwise, my fear actually going into this was that I would be ready to cast and I would just still have 3 shells in the bottom, like maybe it wouldn't have gotten hot enough. But what I actually think happened, and I could be wrong, that cavity was really just filled with like seashell pieces instead of like, you know, when we burn out wax, for example, it comes out of the bottom and goes to like a farm upstate or something. I think that, so when we do a normal cast, right, we are building something with wax and we're burning the wax out in order to fill that negative space with metal, right? But what I think happened here is when we burnt the shell, I think we got just like degraded shell. I don't think we actually got a full clean burnout. I think that, I mean, and probably because, just like spitballing here, I know shells are really high in calcium. So I think instead of having that empty space, I think I ended up just having basically a little hole filled with calcium oxide or something, right? That's just me like guessing. And then I think the leaf was maybe a little thin. I think if I tried to do another leaf, I think I would pick like a meteor leaf and then spray that, maybe a couple extra coats. I think it just didn't hold up. And really all I can do at this point is, I mentioned this in another video, is I keep a notebook with me when I am doing different casts, especially if I'm doing something weird like this. And I will take really copious and detailed notes so that the next time I want to do something like this, I can alter my experiment, right? I'm gonna keep trying, gonna keep casting. Let me know down below if you have had any success specifically with these. I really have been in the mood to do some shells and I had these, so I thought why not give them a try. But I might just try, I actually have an RTV silicone, so I might actually try to make a mold of the shell and then try to just do it that way. Let me know down below if you're actually interested in seeing me make a mold. Hopefully you guys aren't too disappointed that the cast didn't come out good today, but I did it so you don't have to. Or let me know, have you guys tried to cast something weird and had it come out awesome? Or have you had any experience specifically casting shells? I'd love to hear from you and get maybe your tips and tidbits. Anyway, I hope that this was helpful. So let me also know down below, what do you want to see next? Because I have a lot of ideas for different casting projects, different metal projects, just different fun stuff altogether. If there's something you guys want to see, maybe I'll bump it up the list to film. But that's going to do it for me today. I will see you guys in the next one. Go forth, be kind, be creative.